Now, shockingly, I have done a little bit of research for this video. What we have here are two examples from Bandai's GoDaiKin line of robots. The one on the right, Vavilos, I've actually already shown you, but I hadn't really twigged that it was part of a larger line of Bandai products. But if I turn this around, you'll see that it mentions GoDaiKin here, an innovative series of super robots. This is also a GoDaiKin, an innovative series of super robots. And the Abega is the one I'm going to look at. But when I was hunting for the name of the Abega, to see whether it was indeed derived from anything, I then discovered more about the background to this particular line, and I'll delve into that a little bit before I start delving into the actual product itself, if you'll bear with me. Now, these are classic early 80s Bandai products, but they're not really Bandai products. So this is similar to what happened with the Terrahawks toys that you may have seen on this channel before, in so much as these toys were actually produced by Popy, P-O-P-Y, but then they were sold by Bandai, and often Bandai America. Now, I think these are probably the European versions, but they do seem to conform with the description of the packaging that I've read elsewhere. Apparently at one point, these sort of super robot packs came with actual carrying handles on them. But then they sort of scaled them back and just released them like this, which is with a sort of polystyrene insert but clear windows through. And Vavilos has exactly that approach to life as well. So what happened was that there was a series of, sort of large die-cast sort of chromey kind of super robot toys called Chogokins, and they didn't sell so well. They were also known in the States as the Shogun Warriors line, and they were licensed via Mattel in the States. And they were all based from mecha animes or tokusatsu live action shows, but they weren't marketed with any connection to them, and there was no English language media for them. So they were just these standalone items. And Abega here is actually from a show called Lightspeed Electroid Albegas. So yeah, this is not the actual, and even more weirdly, this is not the actual hero robot from the show. So I will explain. But basically what was happening was that Bandai were trying to have another go at making the Chogokins successful. So they went with this GoDaiKin approach to life and reissued a series of these in deluxe and standard, and even sort of little mini versions as well. Now, I believe that these ones are probably the deluxe versions. There's supposed to be a little D indicator. There may be a products catalogue in this box. I still haven't opened it yet. I went for one that was kind of mid-range on eBay's sort of pricing sort of range, purely because I wanted to get a box. There are various elements of this that you can pick up separately often, and I'm not even sure if it's entirely in one piece, but I quite fancied having a box. So, very similar to the Vavilos, this is a few simple twists and turns are required to change 3 futuristic robots, Alpha, Beta and Gamma, into 3 highly detailed supersonic jets. But the drama continues to unfold, as these jets are manually combined to create a colourful and spectacular spacecraft Abega that will take you on a fantastic voyage into the cosmos. Now the weird thing is that these 3 little ships are actually piloted by 3 individual pilots. They then fly these ships into Lightspeed Electroid Albegas to form the big Albegas robot from a combination of 3 larger robots that these guys just form the sort of cockpit modules for. So it's like the Power Rangers bouncing around in their individual vehicles and then combining to form a Zord, except that with this one, they fly around in separate vehicles, then fly these vehicles into the bigger robots, and then the bigger robots combine into the main robot. Yeah? It's confusing as all heck, I know, so it's kind of a multi-layered thing. But what I loved about this, and particularly the sort of the front of it when eBay showed it to me, it was just like, that is such an 80s spaceship. It's such an 80s spaceship, and I just thought, I love that as a concept. I just love the design, what's the word for it? Oh, you know, sort of the design feel, you know, the design approach, the philosophy, if you like, behind this. It's very simple, it's white, it's red, it's blue, it does what it says on the tin, it gets the job done, and they all transform individually. So you get 3 robots, you get 3 separate little jets, and you get a big jet out of the 3 of them as well. I love that as a play concept. I love the fact that you get more out of it than just 3 individual toys. So you've got your alpha jet, your beta jet, your gamma jet, your alpha robot, your beta robot, and your gamma robot, and they all come from that big jet. So well played, Bandai, well played. I like that as a concept, I just do. Now, delving into the Wikipedia page here that I've got in front of me, what we've basically got here is that we've got 3 individual robots formed by stacking on top of one another to form a super robot called Abegas. There are 6 stackable formations, and get this, each of the robots is called Alpha, Beta, and Gamma. Yes, I know. You know, they could have at least tried a little bit harder there. It's a toy animation anime series. And we have 3 main characters who are Daisaku, Tetsuya, and Hotaru, I believe. And so they are up against the evil Derinja civilization. And apparently, basically, the monster of the week was an enemy mecha, which was destroyed by being swiped in half by the Abega's big sword. But these little guys are the little jets that they piloted, apparently to get to school initially. So in the beginning of the series, each pilot also used a smaller aircraft which was flown in through small hatches into the backs of the robots in order to pilot the robots. The 3 aircraft could also combine into a single jet called the Super Abega, and so this is the Super Abega that we've got in this box basically. They were very quickly replaced by a different set of small aircraft that could transform into different bipedal droid forms and similarly combined into the new Super Abega. So in fact, correction, this is probably the Super Abega because these guys have got their little transforming forms. So weirdly, in Japan, these guys were not the hero vehicles. They were ancillary mini battling vehicles that presumably they would then sort of flee into the tougher, bigger robots in order to really battle the enemies. So, you know, it's classic anime approach to life, to have the sort of stacking, you know, increasing robots to challenge the bigger ones that you get faced with from the enemy as the episode progresses. Now, this is what I was also interested in from this particular example of it on eBay, because not only did we have the ships, it also had the manuals and so on. So I've got all the information here I need to try and not wreck this stuff. I am, of course, going to try it blind because I'm an idiot, and I should probably read the manual, but I'm not going to because where's the fun in that? Now I will have a brief look at sort of, you know, what the actual instructions are and how much damage I'm actually going to do to this in terms of you know, the actual, I want to see how damaged the individual robots are, but you can see there that it's fairly straightforward, that the wings are going out and the landing gear going in and so on. Very much reminds me of the Gatchaman Popy releases that I've had before now, which were of course also Popy. So it'll be, I'm expecting a very similar build quality. Now, interestingly, it does say copyright 1984 Bandai America, which is exactly in keeping with what I would have expected. But I did wonder if this might have been more of a sort of European version of the releases. Now this could be really interesting here. Look at this. This is actually a little GoDaiKin sort of catalogue here, I think. So this is going to tell me all the things that I now must, of course, try and find on eBay for totally reasonable prices. We've got Bioman, we've got Bio Dragon, This probably isn't the best way to show you these, to be fair, but just to flick you through, it's just nice to have this as a reference point. Obviously, I already know there are websites which will tell you all of this, but I dare say that this actual little catalogue probably isn't something you see terribly often. Oh, actually, it's going to be, okay, so it's a that's cool, actually, that's quite useful for me. So it's a multi-fold thing. So if I get the angle right and don't get too much reflection on it, you should be able to see all of these. So we've got Bioman, a dynamo of a robot that can walk or can be changed into a superjet. Bio Dragon, Dynaman, Jupiter, Dynaman, Voltace 5. Now some of these you start to recognise a little bit, perhaps. Laserion again, apparently. Daijin Jin, there's Abega. So there's mine there. And we've also got, what else have we got? We've got Sun Vulcan, Deltanias, sorry. God Sigma, Machine Dolphin, what? Vavilos, yes, well, we're familiar with Vavilos. Vavilos again, so there is a lesser version of Vavilos, and actually, looking at the box that I've got the top one. Now this is an interesting point. If you see here, see that it says L next to Vavilos there. That indicates it's the DX version. The S on next to this Vavilos indicates it's the standard ST version. And that was a classic sort of differentiator in Japanese terms for different types of toy. So the DXs were the deluxes, the STs were the standards. And we've also got Guardian, Goggle 5. In fact, I've seen that really recently on eBay. I actually watched the auction for that and I saw it go. Well, yes, that is a GoDaiKin range one as well, Goggle 5. So that's quite a sort of an early combiner. Those individual vehicles there split into two halves, albeit I think the head stays the same, and then they just lock on to form a bigger robot. So very sort of Voltron-esque. Yeah, so that's really cool. I'd almost forgotten that was in there. I was hoping it was going to be in there because that's a lovely little catalogue. Just to sort of show off what I presume is the full range there. So that's very cool. So let's have a look at this actual robot. Let's have a look at what we've got here. I mean, I say robot. Oh wow! Oh, that's so heavy. Oh, you know you've got a Popy. You know you've got a Popy toy in your hand when it's heavy as all heck. That is so die-cast. That is brilliant. I do love a little bit of die-cast. I know other people watching will also love a little bit of die-cast. He's an awesome little guy. Look at him. Look, he's cute. He's very cute. I want a Die-X from Starfleet that looks like these. That's what I want. I want one of those. He's got little wheels that still wheel him along, bless him. Okay. Now that one is, let's get him right. Let's get this right. Let's be authoritative about this. So this is the beta, well actually, that's the beta robot, technically speaking, although it's not actually fully transformed. Now, multi-million-dollar question here is, if I can just push this a little bit further back so we can get a clearer shot on him. Let's just see whether or not he's actually got everything he's supposed to have, because he should have little arms that come down from here. And of course, I don't have a clue what I'm doing here, but I'm guessing that he swings out like this, very, very gently, very, very gently. And then if I were Popy, how would I have done this? Okay, yeah, that's very cool. Okay, but I think he's also got fists in here as well. I think he's got a lock-on element there to lock him into the bigger jet mode. I think, does his head? Yeah, his head comes down here. So that's his head. That's his little arms. Now then, how do we pop this out? Because it's blatantly obvious that he should be able to hook that out somehow. I can't figure out how to do it in a safe fashion. Because it should rotate. Somehow, I would have thought. Are you supposed to rotate down? How do you come out? Yeah, I don't really want to put too much pressure on anything, but I'm fairly confident that his sort of claw elements are in there. I'm just too stupid at this time of night to figure out how to prise them out in a safe fashion that's not going to break something. So I'm going to take a view and not break it. So it's marked copyright Toy, which is the animation studio, and Bandai, and it does say on it, it says New Super Abega. So actually, and Jet Robo as well. So that's and it's got its reference number as well. So it's very, very classic Popy. That it's got all the sort of details kind of built into it there. I love the fact that it's early 80s and yet it's still got a decent amount of articulation built into it. So I'll figure out those little arms at some point, and maybe I'll come back to him at some point. I'd quite like to make the main jet. Now this is the Alpha Jet. So this guy, I think, mainly just walks around. Now I've seen examples of this with his rear fins broken, which I imagine is probably a fairly sort of common problem with him, because they're quite thin. They're quite thin. But again, I love the simplicity of it. I love the fact that it's just geometry. It's just geometry. But that's all you really needed. When you're a kid, you don't need massive amounts of detail. You just need enough that you can use your imagination with. So he is supposed to have little sort of grabby arms that come down out of... So I bet this... So he's got arms in here, I imagine, that fold out and down. Now then, he looks like... Oh no, one of those isn't... No, it's not broken, it's just in a different configuration, I think. Ah, there you go. Now, if I had nails, that would probably also help, I feel, here. And at the moment, I don't, which is unfortunate. So I'm guessing, I'm hoping this is still on camera vaguely, yes. Okay. So he's going to do that sort of thing. And I imagine if I were brave, I'd apply more pressure on there, and then there'd be a sort of a subset of these would allow you to pop something more out. Oh, this is definitely not designed for big chunky fingers. There's definitely something else that wants to come out from there, without a doubt. But I'm not going to push my luck, because I think that would just be asking for trouble. So basically, you can see that there are the beginnings of arms coming out of there. What I'll probably do is just have a quick look at these now, and then I'll take a little bit more time and just sort of assemble them up individually in a sort of a more official fashion. Now this one I was a little bit concerned about, because I could see from the box that the Gamma, no, this isn't the Gamma Jet, this is the Alpha Jet. Sorry, that was the Gamma robot. This is the Alpha robot. Now this guy, I've seen broken from other people, and my immediate concern was that he had a very obvious black claw sort of hand here, which wasn't immediately obvious on the other side, but happily it is in there, and it's also really easy to get out. So he is complete. That's nice. That's really nice. So I think that all of these guys are as they should be, and they are nice and clean, and they are not yellowed. So actually, I'm really happy with those. I'm actually really happy with those. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have a little fiddle with the other ones. Let's see if I can actually get a sort of a group shot of them all as they should be. And here we are. Oh, that was such fun. They're all complete. They're all intact. It's awesome. I can't really explain to you the sheer sort of joy that I got on discovering that I could actually transform them all properly. It's very straightforward. They're not out and out transformers at all, of course, but they are classic Popy quality stuff. They are so heavy. It's kind of what I would imagine Dinky would have done if Dinky had ever made robots that did transformation things. You know, Popy seems to have had that sort of mindset in life, that this is how they approached things. And so left to right here, we've got alpha, beta, gamma, funnily enough. And you know, they're not massively complicated little things, but they've all got legs, they've all got little arms. You know, they've clearly tried really hard with them as sort of concepts, just to make them look kind of workable. Which I love. I love the Japanese attention to detail on things like this. And as you can see, you know, the chrome stuff, this has been kept in beautiful condition. The box has clearly been not in sunlight because they are crispy, minty white. They are nicely chromed still. You know, there's only the wings are really plastic. It's funny because the manual basically says, please don't lift the wings above 180 degrees because otherwise you will break it. And it's like, you can't get fairer than that. It's basically, don't be an idiot. If you're an idiot, you're going to break your toy. So don't be an idiot. I mean, you can't say fairer than that, can you? In trying to preserve these things. And then you've got this little guy here as well. He's the heaviest actually of them because all of his leg tracks here, oblique Starfleet reference there, are metal. So all of these feet are metal. And you'll notice that that's actually got sort of fake caterpillar tracks on the bottom of it. I love that sort of attention to detail from Popy. It's brilliant. So he's awesome as well, and he'll just roll back into the line there. And then we've got the Alpha one, which transforms into a very sort of cool mini jet in and of itself, of course. But they are all super little robots. And I have no quibble at all about what I paid for this. And in fact, ironically, some of my my sort of surplus to Star Trek ships helped to pay for some elements of this, and it's a great swap. I'd do it again in a heartbeat because these are lovely examples of things that have no right. I mean, these are 40 years old. Just stop and think about that for a moment. They're 40 years old. They look like they're brand new. That's insane. I'm very fortunate to have got these in this condition because there is absolutely no right for us to be able to pick up toys like this 40 years on in this sort of condition. There just isn't. It's crazy. Oh God, yeah. I mean, the thing that really boggles my mind about this is that I bet these were available in places like Tandy and other sort of slightly offbeat retailers here in the UK. And I don't really remember them, and yet part of me somehow does at the same time. That makes no sense whatsoever. I completely appreciate that. But I feel like I should have picked these up at the time. But I guess that these guys they would have suffered, like I suppose many other lines, from not having had cartoons in this country that were, you know, known at all, basically. They didn't get any promotional stuff. Bandai just took all these Popy die-cast creations and just had them repackaged and slung them into different markets that didn't know the background behind toys. And that may speak volumes about why marketing with cartoons and comics was so important at the time, because as a kid I would quite happily have made up my own backstory for these guys, you know, quite happily, because they transform into a big spaceship. That's all I need. All I need is a big spaceship and transforming robots that create it. I'm fine with that. That'll do. So it's a shame that they didn't get more backstory here, because we you know, the kids probably would have really enjoyed these, I think. But the problem is they do start and stop with this. So it's not like they really sort of interact with each other. They're not necessarily the same scale as other things. Other things don't necessarily break apart into smaller robots. There's no consistency there. So I guess that's what these guys suffered with, is that there just isn't a consistency. So what I'm going to do now is try the other transformation and put them all into their individual jet modes, and then try and combine them into their Super Abega mode. So yeah, well, Super Abega, Abega, I don't know. But anyway, you get the idea. So bear with me. I've got to show you this bit. This was puzzling the heck out of me. I thought, how on earth am I supposed to get these back onto his body, sort of looped around? It's like I could not figure it out. And the neighbours will probably be wondering what on earth was happening. So I just had this sort of insane cackling echoing from next door when I finally figured out how to do it. But the instructions are quite clear. The instructions say, pull triangular hinges out to the side. Pull lower white sections out to the side, then swing up and forward 180 degrees. Swing up and forward again until the two white sections are joined. And I just thought, but how? How do you do that? There's no way. They don't slide. You can't sort of, how am I supposed to do that? And incredibly, they've rigged it so what you actually do is you have to pull, and it's terrifying when you think of how old this toy is, but it's still holding together doing it. So you have to pull the bottom section out like that, and then do exactly what it said and fold it up on itself, and then it locks back in on itself onto the chromed bit, and then it folds with absolutely zero tolerance for error up into there, and then it locks into the front section and forms the body of the jet. I mean, I was absolutely terrified of doing it, but it was literally the only thing left I could possibly do to try and figure out how to transform it successfully. And you've got to hand it to the people designing this 40 years ago, you know, and they allow you to produce that using springs to, you know, to sort of to pull the legs apart, to put them onto a slightly different sort of vector, to then bring them back round and in and onto themselves. And I could see that they could probably do it, but I couldn't see how they were going to do it. And now I've got a little spaceship, and that's also super cool. You even have to turn the little hands around to get them to fit in there, but it's all tucked away inside itself. They've all got little extra landing gear at the bottom there, and I've got a great big strut at the front. I am so glad that I went for a nicely complete version of this. It may not be absolutely 100% because it's a little bit loose in places. This one's sort of grab hands are a little bit loose, but it's got all its parts and it is beautifully white. And there you have all three of the jets. So they are now all in jet mode. So you've got alpha, beta, gamma, all in their jet modes. And that's an impressive display. You know, I've got to go all the way back for that because the wings are so huge. But I can see so many echoes of the Popy Gatchman line from just from looking at these three, even down to the little sort of aero fans on the ends of this one's wings. That's very, very reminiscent of a Gatchman feature. In one of their sort of combining mecha there, with combining ships. So it's just really, really, really cool. Nice little sort of land vehicle tank chap there, who'll form the main body of the Super Abega, and this little guy that I've already shown you. And again, you know, attention to detail with the landing gear. Just incredible for 40-year-old designs that are still in incredibly good condition now. So now I just need to figure out how to combine them all together. And there it is, the finished article. It absolutely does exactly what it says on the tin, because the photograph on the box is a photograph of this in its combined form. It's wonderful, it's simple, the connections are absolutely firm as all heck. They're metal connections that is not going to break apart until you want it to, but the instructions do say in their helpful cautionary tone that you shouldn't fly it around by just the top bit, basically, because they could split apart. That could happen, and then obviously that disaster would ensue. However, somebody never did that with this one because it's still in one piece. I just think it's glorious. I cannot get over how much I have enjoyed messing with this. It's the attention to detail, I think, as much as anything else that I love about Popy toys. It's just very simple, very clever, not too busy. It's just straightforward. It's just epic. It's like, you know, I feel like if you got it at the time, you probably would have paid a bit more for it, but it would have lasted unless your children were completely reckless. But I don't think a reckless child would have gone for this, because you'd have to be able to figure out the instructions to use it. I think though that the problem is these guys were probably running smack bang into Transformers territory. And they did have a backstory, and they transformed into more relatable objects. And so these guys, as brilliant as they are, just got stuffed, I suspect, unfortunately, into the process. And in case you're wondering, what you now do, per the instructions, is if you want to separate them, you press the yellow button on the back of this one, and then away it goes, just like that. You can see that there is a lock-on piece here, which is where this locks into, but it's also got a metal peg here, which it also sits on to keep it stable. And then, if you want to separate these two, you press the great big yellow button here, and just, hopefully, split them apart like that. And again, great big connector piece there, which actually folds back into the beta robots, and most of the time you can't even tell it's there. That's so clever. So, you know, it's not the biggest thing. I fully accept that it is not the biggest thing. But if it were any bigger, it would just be crushed under its own weight. I mean, I've put the box back there just so you can see, you know, exactly sort of what the box represents it as being compared to what it actually is. And the box is not lying to you. And you can see it through the box, you know? It's like you literally don't get any more transparent marketing than that. Because you get literally what is on the box is what you end up with. I'm just hunting for a measuring implement. So, in terms of overall size, okay, if I were to sort of just, you know, pull these together, the whole lot end to end there is only 28 centimeters. So each individual ship is about the sort of 10 centimeter mark. The beta one's a little bit smaller because he's chunkier, so he's 8. And I guess this one's, yeah, this one's 10. But I'm just so happy to have had a chance to have a look at this with you, because you can, I'm sure you've been able to tell from the tone of my voice, I take great joy in the level of craftsmanship and thought that's gone into that. And the fact that they took a cartoon, they took secondary ancillary vehicles from a cartoon and turned them into a rather lovely little set of 3 toys for kids to enjoy. And that takes something beyond simple sort of, you know, job satisfaction, you know, job performance. That takes a sort of a degree of love, I think. There's heart and soul being put into this, I feel. I think the sort of design philosophy at Popy must surely have been something along the lines of, would I be happy if my kids got these to play with at home? And these were clearly guys who had very, very high standards, you know, in terms of what they wanted their kids to be playing with. That's all I can really assume. I think it's just part of that sort of Japanese design philosophy that they would go to this much trouble over toys for kids. And I don't know, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. You know, am I just sort of overselling it? Are they just toys still? You know, was this the sort of thing you would have picked up if you'd seen it in a newsagent when you were little? Because I think I would have done, and I can't understand why I didn't. As I say, the only reason I can think of is that Transformers were doing a better marketing job, and this was a bit too bland for its own good, which is a shame. I mean, the funny thing is, it describes them as supersonic jets. It doesn't really, and then it talks about blasting off into the cosmos. And yeah, it just call it a spacecraft once it's combined. So I guess that would have sort of, you know, pulled kids in. But it's just such a great little play set, if you want to call it a play set, you know, because you're getting 3 things in the box. Straight out of the box, you're getting lots and lots of extras from that. And so, you know, the instructions are absolutely cracking. So again, the instructions are really, really good, because it is quite complicated to do everything you need to do with it. So, you know, it needs the instructions really to make sure that you don't start breaking it. So that's great. And then, you know, for my purposes right now in 2025, I've got a lovely little catalogue with all the GoDaiKin stuff to tempt me with, to try and have me finding this stuff. Because I bet I'd love the other ones as well. I mean, the Vavilos was slightly less my taste because it transforms into a gun and a spaceship. I mean, it does transform into the spaceship, and I do like the spaceship. The spaceship's good too. But the robot is less convincing. I quite like these little robot-y guys, so they feel like they could just be human-piloted mecha that are doing sort of planetary exploration stuff. You see, I'm already doing the backstory in my head. Yeah, but I think that's what, toys should spark your imagination. And the fact that they don't give you huge amounts, well, they don't give you any backstory, but the fact that they don't give you any backstory means you can create your own. You're not limited. I may be diving too deep now. I apologise. I'm enthusing. I don't often enthuse about stuff like this that I do pick up though. A lot of it is done for nostalgia reasons. This I never had. This simply impresses the heck out of me. So it's a slightly different, feeling that I'm getting off the back of this, because I just love the Popy stuff and I love the Bandai stuff, just in this really sort of nichey little era where it's kind of 83, 84, which is maybe the last of the really sort of heavy die-cast eras before everything started going kind of far more plastic, of course. I mean, I'd really love to understand why that they transitioned towards plastic quite so much, apart from, I mean, I can see the weight issue would be, it would cost more to send things internationally if they are heavier, and everyone just started using plastic for everything. But these things got such durability. But maybe we went towards a more disposable age, and that's why we end up having far more plasticky, 100% plasticky toys. I don't know. Answers on a postcard in the comments, please. I'm going to shut up and stop now, because this is probably already quite a long video. But I hope you have enjoyed my adventures with Abega / Lightspeed Electroid Albegus. Yeah, I mean, and yes, there are videos of it on YouTube if you want to go and see the anime from which this is derived, but you will not see, I haven't yet actually seen these little guys. Well, no, tell a lie. I did see a little bit of one of these little guys in the sort of first episode that I had a quick, sort of whoosh through. But I don't think they have a massive role in the series itself, which makes it even more hilarious that they went to this much trouble with them. It's just, why would you? But they clearly did. So, and don't ask me where the big robots go if this thing is flying through space. I don't know where they would have got them from if they had to then link back up again with the big robots. That's details. It's details. Okay. All right. So there you have it. That was a rather lovely Bandai GoDaiKin, which hopefully I'm pronouncing vaguely correctly. That's it, folks. Cheers for now.